Hi guys, hello and welcome to Jazz Across the Pond. Jazz Interviews Reimagined, a brand new and a very, very exciting bringing together of two great nations. It's jazz talking like you've never seen or heard it before. We welcome everybody. We also welcome the main man, the man from the other side of the pond. Let's see if he's there. Well, look at that. Just like a vision, he's there.
Oh my, a vision. It just keeps getting better. I thought you'd call me baloney or blarney. What was it I thought you'd said the last time around? So at least it's improving.
It's improving. Hey, I've just swallowed a dictionary. Anyway, a warm welcome to Jazz Across the Pond and Jazz Interviews Reimagined with me from the United Kingdom. We salute, because I'm Roger Lee, aka the Jazz Cat.
And I'm Kevin Goolsby, and I'm from the United States of America, and they call me Mr. G.
Yeah, Mr. G, Mr. G. The stars and stripes to my Union Jack.
Stars and stripes to your Union Jack. Well, obviously the flags of, as you would say, two great nations who are steadfast allies, but I don't think you're looking for a history lesson.
Yep.
So you could be referring to the Jazz Cat and Mr. G, the Brit and the Yank, partners in crime and best friends. But I don't think that's it either.
No.
But wait, no, I've got it. Now I've got it.
Go on.
Today's guest was born in the United Kingdom.
Well done.
And then he zoomed across the pond and landed in the United States. Yay, there you go.
I got to get up pretty early to catch you out, I'm telling you.
Well, I had to work a little hard for that one, but yeah.
have a sip of coffee. You deserve it.
Well, actually, it's water, but that's okay.
Hey, ditto. So's mine.
Sure it is. It's that, that white water you drink.
Anyway, listen. Last week's interview.
Tell you what a great interview. Adam Hawley, ladies and gentlemen, if you've not already viewed that interview, you need to. Because Adam is a gifted guitarist. He's a composer, arranger, and producer whose musical studies began at age 8, and I didn't know this, culminated with a PhD from the University of Southern California.
Yeah.
But Adam he's not just a music scholar. He's an overachiever too, as it turns out. I mean, Roger, think about it. In the last 5 years, Adam is one of 3 artists to capture 7 spots on Billboard's year-ending top 50 song charts.
Yep.
There's only 3 artists right now that have captured 7 spots. However, there are 6 musicians who have picked up 8 spots. The most by any artist in the last 5 years, and today's guest is one of those artists.
Wow. So we really are. This is just amazing. But yeah, Adam Hawley, 3 albums. He's alluded to the fact there's a new one in the can just about to be released. We can't wait to that. But the guest list of musicians that appear on it, that's credentials in itself. A brilliant album. The album's called Escape. Watch the interview. Amazing. Such a nice gentleman and that. And he welcomed us into his house in California and that. And we had a really, really good chat. So that was last week. Now, this week, I mean, you just touched on it there. A gentleman born in the United Kingdom. We're going to be talking about that and why he then took the translation and went to the United States of America. We're going to discuss all that. I'm just looking at the screen now. He's literally, in the last 2 minutes, he's just appeared into our green room. We better make sure we're looking smart, ready for
I am.
Okay.
We know who it is.
Oh, we know who it is. What we're going to do, because he's got a brand new album, literally released on September the 3rd, a couple of days ago. So it's here. We've both listened to it on our respective systems, and we're both blown away with it, and we can't wait to talk to the man himself. But to get us into the mood of this thing, I thought that between the two of us, we're actually going to play a track from his 2010 album, Blue Bolero, which we love this album. We love the new one, but we love this one. And just to get us into the right frame of mind, to get us into it, we thought we'd play a bit of bossa blue to get us into it. What do you think?
That's perfect.
Well, I think it goes well with your shirt.
And I'm sort of the boss every now and then.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, at least the boss of my own show. You're the boss of your show. And so I guess we're co-bosses on this show.
Okay. Anyway,
Oh,
let's not make him wait any longer. Let's play a fabulous track from Blue Bolero. This is Bossa Blue. Ladies and gentlemen, on the other side of this track, we're going to be inviting Mr. Chris Standring. Come and join us.
oh wow.
Enjoy this track.
Hi, this is jazz guitarist Chris Standring from Los Angeles, California, and you're watching me on Jazz Across the Pond with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. Hope you enjoy it.
So, what can we say? The man himself said, it's a welcome back from myself because I've had the pleasure of interviewing Chris a while ago when you came out with your last album, the great album. And so it's great to have you back with us. Chris, good evening. Welcome along to our show.
Thanks. It's very nice to be here. Hope you guys are doing good.
Very well, thank you, sir.
Absolutely. So what can we say about this week's very, very special guest? A multi-talented American jazz guitarist, composer, is considered iconic, very influential, recognizable, and revered. A guest tonight is one of the most prolific and successful jazz artists on the contemporary urban jazz scene in the world. Well, I'd refer to you as the Picasso of the jazz world. Now, the reason I say the Picasso of the jazz world, Picasso was famous for always pushing the boundaries, and you couldn't put him into one sort of art. He went, no, I'll go and do this now. And that is paramount when you look at your wonderful catalogue of albums, whether it's Hip Sway, whether it's Electric Wonderland, whether it's Soul Express, Blue Bolero, or your new album. So good evening and welcome along Jazz Across the Pond to the wonderful Mr. Chris Standring.
Well, thank you so much. It's a very flattering intro. I don't really know how to live up to that, but you know, whatever. It's all good.
The Picasso, I'm impressed.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard that, and I may never again. But I'll take it. You know.
Okay, well there you go. That's what we can do. I mean, both Kevin and myself, on our respective radio shows, whenever your one album comes out, they never cease to mention you. We're going to investigate why, but you always seem to go off. And there's a lot of artists when they come out with a new album, but they will remain nameless. And you can tell straight away, you go, okay, this is another album, here we go. But you have a wonderful way of going, I'll tell you what, yes, I've enjoyed that. Now I want to challenge myself and go off and do something different. And that's paramount with your new album. So there we go. Anyway, now, before we start the interview, our researchers have done a lot of work on the new album. But before we start that, both Kevin and myself, along with the rest of the world, a few months ago, when we saw a picture of you in hospital and you'd had your heart attack, can we please just, first of all, you look fabulous, you look good. So obviously you're feeling a lot better now?
Yes, I mean, as far as I know, everything's fine. I mean, they fixed me up pretty good, you know, they put a stent in me and discharged me. And I mean, I'm on all sorts of statins and things like that going forward, but you know, I'm sort of embracing that at this stage of my life. It's what most people have to go through to get to the end.
Well, some of us don't want to get to the end prematurely. Like yourself,
well,
I suffered a massive heart attack about 12 years ago. I have 3 stents, and I've got statins in the attic. So,
wow, have you?
I've got plenty of,
That's amazing. I'm glad you're okay too. That's good.
Yeah, well, I felt a lot of empathy for you, and when you came out with Wonderful World, and we'll get into that in a few minutes, I was wondering if there was any kind of correlation to having a life-changing event. I mean, it changes your whole perspective when you're looking at something like having a stent put in and then leaving the hospital.
I'm not totally sure that this album had much to do with the aftermath of that event, because I started this album quite a long time ago.
Right.
And I mean, it could be the universe telling me something. Well, you never really know. But no, I think the next album I do might have a little bit more to do with that, drawing from that experience. We'll see how that turns out. But I think on Wonderful World, I really wanted to do a record like this for many, many years. And of course, the expense is the main factor that just stops you doing a project like this. I mean, it was just unbelievably expensive. So unless this album that sells like hotcakes, it's unlikely that I would do another one like it, as much as I'd love to, because I mean, it just might be a one-off. We'll see. you never know. I mean, we're getting rave reviews. Everybody's loving this record, so
Oh,
you just
it's
don't know.
awesome.
It's too early to tell.
Right, we're going to be talking about the album in a moment. First of all, let's just find out, because our researchers on both sides of the pond have been working extensively, really, really difficult, compiling all the information about it. So, born and raised on a farm in rural Buckinghamshire in the good old United Kingdom, where you were driving tractors, feeding sheep. At the age of 6, you started studying classical guitar, which
That's right.
then is obviously influential now. So can you very briefly tell our followers about your early days in the United Kingdom and your introduction to jazz, and what made, I know Joe Pass is one of your great heroes, but I mean, where was the transition and the mood then to go into jazz and that?
Well, boy, there's a lot on the table there.
Yes.
But basically, I had a classical background from age 6 right the way through to music college days in my 20s. And, you know, when I was about 16, I discovered rock and roll a little bit. I was at boarding school and I had some mates and we got a band together. And, you know, we were playing Simon and Garfunkel songs. Not that that's rock and roll, but at the time, you know, it was kind of hip.
It was current, yeah.
And I remember, you know, playing All Right Now by Free. Do you know what I mean? That, you know, because they're easy things to play on the guitar. And I studied a book by Harvey Vincent called Lead Guitar. And it was just to show me the blues scale, and I was off to the races, you know. And then once I left school, I took a year off and did all sorts of crazy things and went back to music college. Now, when I went back to music college in London in the 80s, I studied strictly classical guitar, but I taught myself jazz. Like, I mean, I would split up the day's practice, you know, I practice Bach preludes and fugues in the morning and jazz in the afternoon on my own, and sight reading, things like that. And I got a band together, and I met a lot of kids at the music college who were legit straight ahead jazz musicians. And they were all playing in the National Youth Jazz Orchestra, which is kind of a training ground for session musicians in London. And everybody went through it. Anybody who became anything in London as a professional musician went through that process. And I did too. And I remember I wasn't good enough when I first auditioned for it. I failed miserably. And I took a year off and I said, okay, I'm going to come back and nail this. And I did. You know, I went away for a year and did exactly what I needed to do, and got my chops together, got my sight reading skills together, and I came back and I nailed it. And I did a whole ton of gigs with that band, which really set me in motion for my career. It's like, okay, I know what I have to do now. All these guys are working, you know, and so, you know, the rest is a mystery, really. But that was the foundation of it.
Brilliant, Kevin.
Yeah, Chris, in the intro, we mentioned earlier about your move from the UK to the States. And if you would share with our viewers the reason for the big move in 1991 and why California in particular.
Well, I was listening to all my favorite records in London, and I was poring over these LPs, looking at the liner notes, thinking, who's making these records? And they were all people from Los Angeles, you know. They were all the top studio players like Steve Lukather and Robin Ford and Larry Carlton and Lee Ritenour and Jerry Hay doing all this horn arrangements, and all these guys. It seems like everybody was here in LA, and that was the music I was gravitating towards. On the other side of the coast was the straight ahead jazz coming out of New York, and that didn't appeal to me so much because I had this pop proclivity, you know.
Right.
And I didn't really want to lead that jazz life. I thought, you know, I want to be able to afford to buy a shirt. So I thought,
like one of ours, really.
Yeah. It seemed like LA was the place. I spent this year here before I went to music college. I knew it. It was very familiar to me. And yeah, it just made a lot of sense. And by the time I moved here, I had really, really had enough of London, insofar as I knew what I would be doing in the music business in London if I was to stay there.
Right.
And of course, everybody's on their own journey. Everybody, I mean, a lot of my friends have done fabulously well, but I knew what I would be doing. And for my interests, they didn't lie in London. And, you know, I was doing a lot of jazz and pub gigs, you know, and sitting in orchestra pits, playing West End shows and following conductors. And I did that very well because of my legit classical background, you know.
Correct.
But I felt like I had to move here to really, I didn't even know I wanted to be an artist. I didn't really know that until I got here. I'd always had a band, because I was always a composer and an arranger. So I wanted that outlet to learn, but I didn't really know that I was going to come here and be an artist and make records. But just as in England, I wasn't getting a ton of calls to do freelance work because I had a band. People wanted to play in my band, you know, right. and that baggage followed me here to Los Angeles. You know, I did a fair amount of work, but you know, I had a band and people wanted to play in my band. I got known as a band leader once again, and it seems like you can't leave one set of problems in a country if you decide to go and live in another one. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, one thing led to another, and I got my first record deal, and I was off to the races. And I thought, well, maybe this is what I should be doing, you know. And I enjoyed it. It's what made sense to me. Yeah, and that was the beginning of it all, really.
I'm just going to very, very quickly just jump in, and because some of our followers may be going, they may not understand exactly about the New York jazz scene over the Los Angeles. I remember seeing an interview with Donald Fagen and Walter Becker over the album Asia, and they did have the album, but there were 3 tracks, Peg, Josie, and they could not get the New York jazz musicians to give them the feel that they wanted, and they went to Los Angeles. Those 3 tracks were recorded in Los Angeles because the musicians in California gave them that feel, which no disrespect to the New York jazz musicians, couldn't give them that feel. So exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, actually, in the defense of New York, it wasn't just the New York guys that couldn't get it together. There was a bunch of LA guys that couldn't get it together either. Let me tell you. You know, it took Jay Graydon to come in and play his solo.
That's right.
That put that song on the map. I mean, nobody else. I mean, I heard those other solos, and between you and me, they weren't great. You know, they weren't great. But Jay's was standout, and it was obvious that was going to be the solo. So. Yeah.
Right in saying there was something like 19 attempts at it. Larry Colton had a go. They all had a go in it. But in Donald Fagen's head and Walter, they knew what they were listening for, and Jay Graydon came forward with it.
Yeah, he sure did.
Kevin.
Well, Chris, obviously the choice between the East Coast hot jazz of like New York, that's the hot spot obviously on the East Coast. But there's always been that argument about hot jazz from the East and cool jazz from the West Coast. But obviously you made the right move, because in the last 5 years, you have picked up 8 spots on Billboard's year-ending smooth jazz top 50 charts. No one else has captured more spots in the last 5 years than you have.
Are you sure?
Now,
wow.
I beg your
I
pardon?
had no idea. That is news to me.
Well, now let me just share a little more. I mean, obviously charts are only one aspect of a life, you know, in the music world, but it's a good indication, obviously, you know, that your music is appealing to the public.
Yeah.
I did read where, when you were asked about your amazing volume of compositions, and you stated the following, and I wanted to ask you about this quote. You said, "I'm very disciplined about my writing. I'm not married and I don't have any children because I've been so intensely focused on my music. I didn't want any distractions. I write pretty much every day and need silence and time for reflection. Although I listen to a wide range of music styles to spark my creativity, I would have to say that just 1% of my output is from inspiration and 99% is from dedication to my craft. Now, my question to you is, if you would be
I would agree. I would agree with me.
Well, I knew that there might be a little problem with an argument within about that, but if you would share a little bit more with or expound a little bit, if you would, for our listeners about your composing process.
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head about that 1% of inspiration. I mean, that's what we're really all looking for. The problem is when you've written so much music, coming out with something new is tough. There's only so many chords, only so many chord progressions that seem to work so well together. And I sort of tried them all. So, the more you write, the more difficult it becomes to write something super fresh. That's why you'll find people like the Beatles had all their hits back in the day, and it gets more tough as the years go on, because you've kind of, you've given your good stuff. However, I think as long as you have your antenna up for this bit of inspiration, and that's what we're all trying to do. We're literally just waiting, and it could come from anywhere. It could come from something we hear on the TV or on the radio as I'm driving, And I have to say, inspiration for me is definitely coming from music. It's not coming from anything else.
Right.
I'm totally absorbed by music. That's enough for me, But I might need to hear 2 bars of something that somebody else played for me to go, ooh, that's interesting. What's that? That'll pique my interest. And I'll go, what can I do with that? How can I steal that? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing, people. We're stealing. That's kind of it. I mean, however, when you put your spin on it and you put your melody on it, or your chords underneath, like a three-note melody or something you've heard, it becomes a completely independent and unique sounding track. I've recorded tracks that was inspired by Ramsey Lewis, but you'd never know it. I might have heard one of his songs and written something, you'd never know it, and he certainly wouldn't know it either if he heard it.
Well, a lot of our artists.
It doesn't matter how you get there. That's the point. You've got to get there somehow. To spark the rest, the rest is that craftsmanship that we know how to flesh something out once we've got a germ of an idea.
We've had some prior guests who have talked about how they maintain some sort of documentation of thoughts that they have, a couple of bars or something, a lilting melody that just pops in their head. They'll put it down, transcribe it, or they'll record it, with the piano or whatever, and fall back on it. So I more than appreciate that.
Okay.
Sometimes it only takes 2 bars for a lot of things to happen, Chris.
Yeah. I get very jealous when I hear Paul McCartney say things like, well, I dreamt yesterday. I woke up in the morning and I had a song. Wow. I'd love it to be that easy. I don't think that's happened to him since either, though, I have to say.
Okay,
we're
going to take a quick break from this interview while we play a track from a new album. Before then, of course, I first got into yourself with ready for this? The 1996 trio album of Solar System. How about that one there? And
how did you hear about that?
Well, I did, and I actually think that album was ahead of its time.
Oh, yeah, it was.
I really do think that was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And of course, before that, you had Main Course as well, which has just been reissued a few years ago. Yeah. Hey, we know our stuff here. Anyway, what we're going to do now, ladies and gentlemen, the followers, we're going to be playing a track from this one. It was released literally a couple of days ago. It's Chris Standring's brand new album, Wonderful World. We're going to be talking about this. Before then, we're going to play a fabulous track, the Louis Armstrong cover version of What a Wonderful World. We'll be straight back with the wonderful Chris Standring, and we'll continue this great interview. Ladies and gentlemen, across the pond, we're here, and Chris Standring's here. Stay with us.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Welcome back to Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. We've been listening to What a Wonderful World, an exceptional arrangement by our guest, Mr. Chris Standring, from his impressive new project, Wonderful World. And I might add, by the way, vocals were added by Ms. Catherine Shore. And if I remember correctly, I think she was on your 2011 Christmas album, Send Me Some Snow.
That's right.
Chris?
Yeah.
Well, Chris, of late, we've had several jazz projects that have utilized full orchestras or big bands. And what I appreciate about Wonderful World is how you use a trio format with orchestra serving as the complement or as a guest artist. It's almost as if the orchestra is a guest artist, but yet an integral part of the project. If you would, sharing with our viewers, what was the genesis for the project and how challenging and fulfilling was it to arrange and produce this project?
Well, the genesis was, boy, there's a lot there on the table again.
We're here for you, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to do an album like this for a long, long time. And the whole idea in my head, and I had this very conceptualized right from the word go, that the album should be a trio format album. So ostensibly, I wanted to be able to play everything on the guitar, in like melody and chords on the guitar. But all the harmony, other than that, should come from the orchestra. So basically, I didn't want a piano to fight with the guitar, to fight with the strings, you know?
Right.
So I really wanted the album to breathe. So basically, if I played one note, the orchestra could snuggle around it and provide the harmony. I know I'm getting into very technical stuff right now, but it was very organized. I mean, you know, basically I recorded the rhythm section stuff here in Los Angeles. And in fact, I recorded the guitar to fake bass and drums first here in my studio. So I had something to work with. And then I replaced the bass and drums with all these wonderful guys like Harvey Mason and Peter Erskine.
Really?
So I had the track. And of course, I had to play the guitar, the melodies and the solos with the idea that the strings would be there later. So I had to play much, much more simply than I would if I was in a live playing situation, because in a live playing situation, you're going to cover everything. If there are any holes, you're going to fill them. However, I couldn't allow myself to do that because I knew that the strings were going to be there later and I didn't want them to be too cluttered. So it's quite a disciplined process. And of course, once the rhythm section stuff was done here, I just sent the stems over to my good friend Jeff Gascoigne in London, who ended up doing all the string arrangements. Now, I had personally done all the string arrangements for the first initial concept, but they weren't quite up to par. However, it was really good that I did them because it showed Jeff exactly what it was all about,
Bingo.
how I wanted it to be. I didn't want anything to be too busy. It had to be about the guitar melody and the orchestra just weaving around it. So my demo version of that was a great thing for him to hear. And then, of course, he took it way, way to the next level and wrote things I couldn't have written at this stage. You know, so once he had all the strings written, he then sent the strings back to me in written form, and I knocked a few things out and said, look, that's too busy there, or can we change that chord here? Went back to him, he made changes, he came back to me, I did one last time. And so it was very much of a sort of a, what's the word? We did it together, is what I'm trying to say,
right,
you know.
right.
Great collaboration.
Yeah, collaboration, that's it. Words one forgets when one gets older.
Much of now.
Yeah.
What I would say, I mean, we're talking about the doing the strings and the orchestra. I mean, because we got a port, it was recorded at Abbey Road, you know.
That's right,
and
that's the next thing. That was the final piece of the pie. Actually, that's not the final piece of the pie, but yes. So the strings were recorded at Abbey Road. I wasn't even there for them. I didn't even need to be. I was on Zoom just like this. Jeff was so capable. He conducted. He booked all the best players that play in the London Symphony Orchestra and things like this. And so he then sent the stems back to me for me to mix. And I did a rough mix of one song called Sunrise, sent it off to Randy Brecker. And he played his flugelhorn solo in New York, sent it back to me. And I mixed the entire album. Catherine Shaw, she came to my studio and recorded. I wanted her to sing to the orchestra. So we did a demo but then when the orchestra came back and I had a mix of it, I said, no, you need to come and sing to this because it's going to knock you out, you know. And so we did a new version together, and then I mixed it and mastered it, and there it is.
Wow.
That's the album.
It is a stunning album. Wonderful World, 11 fabulous tracks, including songs by Vernon Duke, Louis Armstrong, Burt Bacharach, Hal David, Rodgers and Hart, Cole Porter, and Joel and Gilberto. So to mention just a few of the great songs there. So my question to yourself is, with such a massive selection of songs, how did you get down to those 11 songs and decide on those 11 songs when there is so many fabulous? I think the songs you've chosen are brilliant, but you know, that thought process of trying to bring it down to that.
Yeah. Well, it was not easy, but as I said, I wanted to find songs I could play together on the guitar, the melody and the chords at the same time, and that just really sat under the fingers and was easy to play, or easy to work up an arrangement. But for the most part, I wanted to be familiar with these songs. So many of these songs I had played for years and years, you know. I mean, songs like Green Dolphin Street, How Insensitive, I've been playing a long, long time and love them. Alfie was a song that I had not played before, but I was looking for more songs, and that just screamed orchestra to me, and it sat beautifully on the guitar too. So that was a no-brainer. And then Maxine, Donald Fagen's song.
Yeah.
I've always loved that, and I did a transcription of it, and really very few people have done instrumental versions of it, and it seemed to work quite well. So yeah, and when I got 10 songs, my business partner in London, Mayank, said to me, I think we need one more, something like that. And he said, and I said, well, what should it be? I can't think of another standard that's gonna, I mean, there are others that I just didn't want another bossa nova, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I chose Sunrise from my Blue Bolero album. I thought this might be nice to do a remake of it for the orchestra, because it's such a, I slowed it down, and it's just one of those songs that the orchestra was, I said to Jeff, look, keep this so simple. I mean, really just make it passionate, you know. And it came out great. It's one of my favorite tracks on the album, actually. So yeah, that was it.
I was going to say, I love the whole, and I was actually, when I read through and I went Estate, because of course I love Chris Botti on the album Italia. He did a great version of that, but your version surpassed that. It's absolutely beautiful, the whole album.
Oh, thank you. Estate is actually how
Estate, my apologies, not Estate.
Yeah.
Estate.
Brazilian. Yeah.
So we got about 10 minutes left. Kevin, question from yourself.
Yeah, we've already touched the base a little bit about the musicians that you employed on Wonderful World, but just to give everybody due course, I mean, we mentioned Randy Brecker, and the choice of flugelhorn versus trumpet was perfect. I mean, don't want that, you know, out front sound of a trumpet. That flugelhorn was a perfect choice. You mentioned Pete Erskine on drums, Harvey Mason on drums, Derek Olds on bass, Dave Carasoni on drums. You had Jeff Gascon on bass. You had Chuck Berghofer on bass. And of course, we mentioned Catherine. Of course, now we talked about you wanting to use that jazz trio format. What I found amazing is that you utilized 3 drummers, 3 bass players, and then of course you had Randy on the flugelhorn, and then of course, you know, you had your vocalist. Share with us a little bit. Some of these people you've worked with extensively. Not certain about all of them. You were familiar with them, but tell our audience how you went about choosing the 8 musicians for the songs that you selected for Wonderful World.
Okay, so usually when I make my normal albums, my commercial jazz pop albums, at this point it doesn't really matter who I get,
right.
Because I've been very established in that format.
Mm-hmm.
Making a record like this, I felt like I was stepping into uncharted waters, and you know, heading for the jazz police, as it was, you know what I mean? It's like I felt like I needed to really let people know that I was up to this. You know what I mean? And I thought it was really it was really important that I got some heavyweight, straight ahead guys on this.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you know, who's more famous than Peter Erskine as a jazz drummer? And I didn't actually know Peter, but I had a referral and we did a deal, and he was, you know, he seemed to be quite honored to be doing this. I've known Harvey Mason for a while. That made a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know Derek. Yes, I did. I knew Derek Oles a little bit. I hadn't played with him, but Harvey Mason liked to work with him. And I said, great, let's do that. And then Peter loves to work with Chuck Berghofer. And I thought that would be a fantastic combination. I mean, he's 85 years old and swinging like the Clappers. You know, he's really on top. I mean, he really embraced that Nelson Riddle 1950s feel. And you can't get that from a guy who's a third of his age. You know what I mean? You can't. So, yeah, I just wanted to step it up and show people that I'm in business. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can get expensive, but I thought I'm making this album for me as much as anything else, and whatever it takes, let's just do what it takes. And of course, Catherine is one of my dearest friends I've known forever, and she's got the most heavenly voice, and I thought,
Definitely.
it's a no-brainer. It's like, of course she has to sing a song on this, you know.
Well, Kevin,
Well,
the
the whole
last
thing's
question
brilliant.
from yourself.
Well, you know, we kind of not talked about a lot of the things that could have interfered with your project, but given the scope of the project and the workarounds that required you to, you know, move the project forward, and you know, we can talk about ad nauseum about COVID, but again, the logistics, having an orchestra involved, and so I guess my question is, with all of the workarounds required to bring the project to fruition, have your desires for this project and your expectations, I know it's just been released, but it's starting to fall into place, isn't it? I mean, we're already getting wonderful reviews on the project. So I was wondering if it was your classical roots. I mean, I'm classically trained on 2 instruments, bassoon and clarinet, and that's what I love about this project. It's what I liked about Blue Bolero, you know, with utilization of strings, and I think it's a brilliant move. But I was wondering if you had that urge to just get back to those classical roots or not.
No. I think. I mean, I've said this before. I get very bored with my music, and I need to do something new. And
Right.
And of course, you know, making a project like this, the idea of my existing fan base enjoying it, I thought wouldn't be too far away for them, and the idea of promoting this and marketing this to a straight ahead audience, I would find new listeners. So potentially, there's a big upside. Now, of course, you know, the downside is it could completely kill my career.
I don't think
I'll
so.
never work again. But I don't think that's going to be the case. People
No, I
seem
don't
to
either.
really embrace this project. So, however, I mean, I keep saying this. I've made this album for me. If nobody buys it, it's fine. You know what I mean? I had to do this, but I've also found that, you know, if you approach a project with pure authenticity and honesty, that's when it does translate. You know, when you really do something that you need to do, and it's deep in your soul, rather than making a record that people want you to make, for instance.
Exactly.
I've found that that's when things really kick in for you. You know,
Right.
Time
we'll
is not
see.
on our side, unfortunately, Chris. It is literally, the curtain is beginning to come down. And where can our followers, where can they buy a copy of this wonderful album?
Well, you can get it at my personal website, chrisstandring.com, if you want a personally signed CD. And I'll be selling vinyl there too, and signed vinyl. Or you can get it at amazon.com, iTunes, Spotify is now streaming it, Tidal, all the streaming sites. Basically, you know, you can find it at all good e-stores worldwide.
Excellent. Well, we totally endorse and we recommend that everybody goes out and buys this one. It would make the perfect Christmas gift. It is just fabulous. It's a wonderful album. Ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful Mr. Chris Standring, thank you so much for taking time to come out and chat to us today.
My pleasure. Thanks to you guys. Doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
sir.
Say goodnight, Kevin.
Good night, Kevin.
And it's good night from me. Thanks, everybody. Another interview next week on Jazz Across the Pond. From everybody here from Chris Standring, take care. Good night.